Shock and awe. Where did we first hear that expression? Who? Iraq, Gulf War, right? I was taking physics class at University of South Florida that night in 1991, and I heard about and saw the bombing going on in Iraq. Saddam Hussein wasn't holding up his end of the bargain, so he said, unless you do that, and he saw it. All kinds, the whole city was just lit up. Shock and awe, just boom. The Germans called something like that blitzkrieg, quick, fast war. Wow, blitzkrieg. It's a very definite, powerful way of gaining control. Very powerful. You know, Jesus mentions this in this section about eating his body and drinking his blood, and then he's got the Jewish leaders scratching their heads because they're saying, well, wait a minute. In Leviticus 3:17, it explicitly says not to drink the blood or eat the of animals sacrificed. And so drinking blood is something we don't want to do. And here Jesus is turning it up on its end and saying, drink my blood and eat my body. I imagine they were shocked and they were awed by what this man was saying and this blasphemy that he was saying, because he was telling them that he exactly was the Son of Man. And we live with shock and awe every day. What do you mean you took the garbage out? Wow! Or, you baked? Or something like that. My wife tells me that all the time. What? You did that? You planned a day ahead? It's always shock and awe every day of my life. It's usually disappointment and discouragement. But once in a while you get shock and awe. Jesus is very plain about this. Jesus is feeding 5,000 people with a couple loaves and a couple fish. And that's pretty awe-inspiring in itself. Feeding them with physical needs, meeting their physical needs with what they needed. And now he's talking on a whole different level about spiritual needs. Take me in. Abide with me. Be next to me. Obey me. Be part of me. Be next. And you will live. And you will live for all eternity. How difficult is that to do? Shocking. The words he said, the things that he did. One of many things that he did throughout his career as a wandering minister and healer and prophet and, dare I say, Son of Man in the midst of the people. Giving them a second look. Making his disciples take a quick, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? The people that are with him are saying, look at this. This is Joseph's son. How can he be doing this and how can he say that? Let's throw him off the cliff. He's got to be a blasphemer. We can't believe this. And yet he continued his journey, but it wasn't one of fast, decisive action to gain control. That wasn't his way. It was shock and awe in a very different kind of way, as we know. It was that slight, insidious kind of working and growing and developing into something larger than himself. We know two millennia later that it's still continuing. It's not the beat you over the head with this kind of decisive action. It's the kind of love that we have for each other, that we give of ourselves when we can. Yesterday I talked about the Good Samaritan, you know, the companionship that he showed, this philios, this brotherly love that he showed, this maybe even agape. He went out of his way to show this stranger, this Jew that he didn't have any affiliation for, that he was with him when all else left, and to be inviting him into community with himself and the innkeeper and maybe even more people, that he was not alone in his trials. He wasn't alone in his suffering and his healing. He had friends, he had companions, he had the hand of God in his presence, because that's the way that God was working as Jesus told the story of the good neighbor and what it means to be. Shocking to those who heard the story about this Samaritan, those people. And yet, Jesus incorporates that into his story about what it means to be a good neighbor. the shocking parts of life. You listen to the radio anymore, and it's trying to as much shock as you can get. Oftentimes the morning shows I will not listen to because they tend to be crass. They tend to be a little over the top. And I don't want my daughter listening to this stuff. She hears enough the way it is. She doesn't need me playing the radio. But it's continually trying to one up with shock so that it becomes funny or becomes more. It's got to be bigger and better and more awe-inspiring. Otherwise, what? It's not as useful. It's not as inspiring. It's not as, meaningful? We know as Christians sometimes Christianity is not big and flashy and maybe sexy or whatever it is, but it's a slow process of companionship maybe, a slow process of everyday, mundane kinds of things that we do. Small things, smiles, handshakes, good, kind words, letting people go first, holding the door open for someone. It's those kinds of things that the way the faith works through us is sometimes in these small ways, sometimes in an honest answer, an honest comment can turn people into the right path if they're swayed, if they're kind of wandering places. And you look at all the whole and it's shocking. And you look at small everyday things, maybe it isn't so much. But the effect can be shocking. You can have that kid who everybody in the youth group kind of pushes away because he's the bad kid. He's at that time, the hyperactive kid that can't settle down and seems to be wild beyond imagination. And yet, you take the time with that kid and you listen and you build them up to say, you're important, you're a cool kid, you're just the best. And that sticks with them. And they grow and they become cool people that they always were, but now it's more pronounced how cool they really are. Shocking when you look from then to then, but not really. I think that's how the Spirit works through us. Maybe not shocking in the ways we think, not big, expansive, decisive means, but maybe small steps, increments, that healing and companionship and all these things take place, and yet God is present in every single step. Shock and awe. Jesus does it once again. Drink my blood, eat my body. And we're still trying to figure out what exactly that means. It means abiding, the closest we can come to, of taking the whole of Jesus into our lives, and that we will live, maybe not easy lives, but easier lives, possibly, but fulfilling lives, meaningful lives, sure, as shocking as it is. Through the start, through the finish, through what we do, what God does with us. Drink my blood, eat my body, and you will live. Yes. Amen.